just a hair crooked. What do you think? Not terrible?
No.
Okay. Oh, Zadie. Yeah. I guess it probably would have been better if I down one of the soft boxes. I didn't think you could do that though.
I can do it real quick.
You can go grab one from Zadie's room.
Yep.
It's just broken. Hey friends! Say hey Jay.
Hey friends!
He's gonna go get another light so we have an extra one. Because my goal is to be able to save this and then post it on to YouTube if it goes well, so that we can have it as a reference for people. And then we've had so many people join our email list and that have subscribed to starting our new Bible study that aren't on Facebook. So I want to make sure that we're serving them there too. Also, running a little late because I told y'all it was bath time. Oh, she's gonna growl at everybody. And I ended up having to get in the bathtub to wash Sadie's hair. So I had to get a bath and then put clothes, get re-ready myself. So bath time routine took a little longer than usual. So apologize for that. Thanks, Jay.
You're welcome.
I have my list of questions that I got in between when I announced earlier on in the week that Jay and I were going to get together and do this, and ones that I've got today and from comments on the post earlier. Yeah. We're doing dark. Yeah. The other light we had plugged in was blinding.
Is that better?
Yes. So we're gonna act like we're starting over. So if I have to cut it for you.
Hey friends!
Get Zadie. So he's like, what is happening? That's much better.
Yeah.
As far as being able
I can
to
look at
just-
the camera.
Yes. Wow.
Shit, don't fix
I
my
feel
hair.
like that I don't look as good.
Yeah, should fix my hair.
Well, no, don't. You move the tripod. Here, Zadie.
There's a little bit of rocking to the tripod. It's because Zadie baby's.
It's because there's a 1-year-old camera operator.
It's
Not
quite
even one.
Yeah.
Not even.
Oh, like that.
Yeah. Whoa. All right, Daddy, why don't you run grab one of her babies real quick, the dinosaur, and that way she'll have it. I know she's wanting to hold it. Don't aggravate the cat. Oh, now you want to go follow Daddy. So if we don't answer a question, or if you have another question, you can always drop it in the comments. Can't guarantee that we'll see it, but we'll try our best. Or if you see somebody's comment and we miss it and we do a Q&A at the end, just re-ask it, even if they're not on, so that we can make sure we cover it.
She's trying to give Kitten her baby.
Zadie got a new baby today at Opryland. We love jelly cats. If you don't know what jelly cats are, and you have babies or toddlers or kids and they're into stuffed animals, you gotta get a jelly cat. Because they're so soft. Well, I just want to welcome everyone. This is very different, and Justin agreed to do this earlier in the week, as I've been a little frustrated with myself and just the whole trying to figure out doing a written, I hate to say a Bible study for the first time, but like a in your hand Bible study. It's been such a new thing, and I put a lot of pressure on myself for everything to be perfect right out of the gate. And so I am very grateful that he was willing to sub in to supplement, and of course I'm always better when he's here. So that's why we're doing this tonight. So I'm going to open with a word of prayer.
I'm going to try to stop getting up and down. And there's a cat behind you.
I told y'all it was a wild week. I'll just hold it because now she just wants it.
I can go through the...
Okay, I can grab hers. Daddy. Is anybody else's house like this? Or are we the ones with a crazy house? Because this is no. I wish I could say that, you know, this is not what life was like right now, but this is exactly what life is like right now. And why things take me a much longer processing time than normal to do anything at all. So if you're here, say hey. Let us know.
Did Kitten take my spot?
Yeah, Kitten's now doing the interview. And
hello, Kitten.
she is going to, by proxy, have probably the same answers. There's let's see if she'll let you hold her. And we'll calm down.
Okay, calm down.
I've got a big alligator too. Okay. You're going to.
There's Baby Zay.
Baby Zay's on the screen. Alright, we're going to say a prayer. Zay, you want to say a prayer? So, dear Lord, thank you so much for today, for this weekend, for the opportunity to be together as a family, to just relish in making memories and enjoy this chaotic and wild season together, Lord. We thank you that you meet us in the craziness and in the big moments and in the tiny moments, and the exciting and in the mundane, Lord. So we ask that you just be with us tonight. May we, say what is true to our hearts and our story, and maybe even a little something that's helpful for someone and theirs. In your name, pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Are you just already jealous, Pot? Huh. So, Jay, do you want to read the first question? So, I tried to put these in a bit of a good order. And so, we'll see if it is the best order, but if we end up jumping around, hopefully we'll still cover it all.
How did we know each other was the one? That was not grammatically correct. How do we...
Are you going to critique the questions?
Yeah, sorry.
Or are we going to answer the questions?
How did we know each other
Justin's an Enneagram 5.
were the one?
And so, which also means a lot of times he has to analyze everything. So he's not the person you want to watch a historical film with. That has nothing to do with that question, and that's not why I knew you were the one. But that does explain that
Wow,
you're not being ugly. Yeah. This is just...
That's just normal me.
Yes. This is just the way he is.
Yep.
All right. So how'd you know I was the one?
I still don't. I'm just kidding. He said he thought it was funny. He said he thought it was funny.
That's not funny.
No, we've talked about it before. Me and you have. I don't know if we've talked about it on here or not, but I think after my mother passed away and going through all that with you and you being there through all that, after that I was like, yeah, I think this is the girl I'm going to marry.
Yeah, which is crazy because I was 18 and you were 20.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the summer after my senior year and going into your junior year of college.
Yep.
I wish I could say, I think at that point I knew that I hoped this was it. But, I mean, I'll be honest, like, based on, we had broke up twice in the year before that, or year and a half before that. So, like, I just wasn't sure that it would go forever. Like, I hoped it would.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that, and I'm one of those people that
Sorry.
I don't like risk, so I would not have admitted to knowing for sure at that point. You know what I mean? And I think one of the ways that I knew that this was like it is when I did officially go to college, because you were a little worried about like you're going to go to college and you're going to decide there's all these other people out there and you just want to have your own experience and all this, like a lot of people do when they get into a high school relationship.
And I didn't want to like me be the reason you didn't go out and experience anything, whether that's, experience life, whether that's, whether that was partying or whether that was, hanging out with new people or whatever. I didn't want me to be the reason you didn't do that. So
yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons I started gradually knowing versus like, I feel like for you it was more like a very certain circumstance that you're like, yeah, this is it. Versus I had to like.
Yeah, isn't there a Nicholas Sparks quote about like letting go of the thing you love, and if it comes back to you, then it's really meant to be?
Yes, I feel like there is. It's funny that you would know that. But yeah, and it was hard, I think, for me to admit maybe that was it, because I had always had a very specific picture of like what life would look like.
And I wasn't it.
Not
I
that,
wasn't it, and I didn't fit that at all. And
yeah, but also the idea of knowing you would be in the Army and we'd be moving around, and like I wanted to go to thought I wanted to like try to do an Ivy League school, or at least Ivy League post-grad law school, and marry a trust fund baby and get into politics.
You did not marry a trust fund baby. And...
I know, and so that's why it was that like, this feels right. Like I can't imagine it being any better, but this is just not what I thought. And so that was hard. But I think one of the reasons that I knew that this is it, and that I could be with you forever, is that...
That's what we got to say. It took that long.
It didn't take that long. But the fact that you did always allow me... I hate to say allow, like people allow. Yeah. Which some people do use that language. But
I never restricted you in any way.
No, we could live separate lives, but still be connected. Like, you could do your thing at VMI, or when you were in Washington, or when I was in college. There was only 2 years that they overlapped, that we were both in college, and we weren't waiting with bated breath for each other. Like, we didn't miss out on events in college or post-college because the other one couldn't go. If I could name you all the weddings, all the sorority formals, all of the special events I've gone to solely, or because he couldn't go, or just because it was an event that I didn't care for him to go to with me, we'd be here all night. Mm-hmm. And I think the mistake that a lot of people make trying to date through high school, college, is they become very codependent on each other.
That's a good segue to...
Number 2? No. How do we know we were ready for marriage?
No. There's one... How do we stay on the same page when we're miles apart? Yeah. We're miles apart just as much now as we were probably back then. Yeah, but it's a good segue into it.
Yeah.
Next question. How do we stay on the same page when we're miles apart?
Lots of... Knowing how we each communicate.
Which took us a long time to figure out. And like, it's still an ongoing process, and it's a continuation, and it's going to continuous work
yes,
to make sure
we're on the same page.
We're on the same page.
But one thing we realized, because we have been long distance for so long, is that we still, even to say when we're together in the same place, we do better in written communication when we're experiencing love. Our love tanks being low.
That's the way I communicate better anyway, because I can analyze it before I say it, and it's easier for me to communicate that way. So
for us, sometimes we have to text each other the hard stuff.
Yep, because I can't say it, or I don't want to say it and mean one thing and it come across another way. So through text, I can say exactly what I want to. Yeah, and I can think about it.
And usually those hard conversations, or when we really need to express ourselves through text, they lead into in-person conversations, or we realize that that's the signal that we need to go to dinner and have a serious conversation, or sit on the back porch and have a serious conversation, or just talk through something that made me upset or hurt my feelings. Yeah. And we had a situation recently that was completely unintended, but if I hadn't articulated to Justin that I didn't feel seen, even though I know that he was doing what he thought was best and it had to do with work, that it made me feel like he wasn't prioritizing me and us. And even though I was okay with his decision that he had to make, I just needed him to...
Logically, she was okay with the decision that I needed to make. Emotionally, and I guess emotionally, she was not quite as okay with it. Just because she felt like I was putting work before her. And to me, it's just, again, me being a 5 and analytical.
And a man.
it was logical. So my decision had nothing to do with anyone's mental health. It was the logical answer that I had to get to as a leader and
Right.
for my soldiers. So.
And I told him, I was like, I wasn't asking you to make a different decision at the end. It had to do with, he gave up his seat to let another soldier come home early. And, which I was fine with, and I literally wouldn't expect any less of you. But he made the decision without trying to see my point of view on it or explain it to me. It was more of he put it to me like, I'm doing it because this soldier needs me to, because his wife's having a hard time. And I was like, well, did you check in with your wife to see if she's having a hard time or not? You know, and like I said, I didn't want him to have another outcome. I just needed you to listen to me, or like at least check in with me and to say, hey, how are you doing? Look, you know, I'm going to take the last bus out, you know, and that's going to suck, but I feel like it's the right decision to make based on X, Y, and Z. I'm here for that all day long, but as a woman, I do have emotional needs, especially after we had not
Men
been
have emotional needs too, is not what you're trying to say. Just at that point, I was not thinking about emotional needs, period.
Right. Which, in stress, your emotional needs are like
Go out the window.
detached. And me in stress, that's like the only time I sometimes have emotional
And then,
needs.
also, I'd been a month in the field,
And we hadn't talked.
and I had been logical, like my logic.
You hadn't had
thinking,
to think about it.
Yeah,
right?
I hadn't
So
had to think about emotions for a month.
if you are in a long distance relationship now, or there's a chance you're going to have to become long distance because someone's going to school, or they're joining the military, or maybe it's your first deployment, or whatever, we learned a lot of this stuff with our mentorship, with faith and marriage counseling, and how to talk through these things. Faith Beam.
Not
A
faith
person,
yeah.
yes.
And short
paying
story.
Attention.
Long story short. Communication. Communication
Yeah,
is
that's the
key.
answer everybody always
Yeah,
gives. So how do
yeah.
you get to better communicating? Marriage counseling,
Marriage
we are
counseling,
big
yeah.
advocates for.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
go even when you don't need, or when you don't feel like you're going to have a divorce
I'm gonna get her some
anytime
more
soon.
juice. She drank all this whole cup.
Okay.
Sorry.
Daddy's getting you more. Marriage counseling, do books together, marriage books. If you have, we're reading one right now. A great book to start with, very foundational, and it'll give you language you can use together, is Love Languages. That's where the 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. We use the verbiage, love tanks low, a lot, and you'll learn that a lot of times the way you give love to other people is not necessarily how you want it back. And I've had to learn that.
And another thing.
Because I like to love Justin by touching him, but how I want to receive love is actually words of affirmation.
Another thing is, like, a lot of men have a very small emotional vocabulary, and I'm saying that from experience. I guess I'm generalizing. I had a very small.
Yeah, because you always just say you're
emotional.
frustrated.
Yeah,
And
I
I'm
would
like,
just say I was frustrated or whatever, and now I've understood, like, I can say, like, hey, my anxiety is getting high, or this is causing me to feel X way, or my love tank is low. Things like that, that helps you understand, your spouse understand what you mean more. So, I mean, if it could be a male or female spouse, you know, if their emotional vocabulary is limited, then they can't easily explain to you how they're feeling. So, the book we're talking, or we're reading right now, talks about that as well. So, it's a good.
Yeah, and a lot of times when your communication gets off, then your emotional state together gets off. You're not on the same page, which is going to literally affect every other area of your relationship. You know, physical, spiritual, everything else, because you're just not on the same page, so you don't know what each other needs. And so what I need spiritually when I'm anxious is different than what Justin needs. Like, I need him to be close by and to sit there, like, have his hand on me, and, like, I know he's praying for me, and we're just quiet, and he's just there with me. Versus when Justin's anxious, a lot of times, like, he needs to be in a room by himself, read, like, put on some of his, like, chill vibe, lo-fi beats music, and just sit for a little bit and, like, meditate
Detox.
yourself back out.
Yep.
So,
Because I'm not a social creature.
the book.
Oh, I'm not a social creature by nature, so when I have to be social for long periods of time,
or there's even a short, intense period,
Yeah.
like where there's a stressful situation. So, all of that, which I felt we answered kind of a segment in there. But going back to how did we know we were ready for marriage?
marriage counseling. That was
A big one.
a big one. Like
Another thing was we had checked certain things off the list. Like I told you, I did not want to get married until I had my degree.
Yeah.
And we had kind of made the pact and told my parents that if he got stationed anywhere outside of the country,
Yeah.
that we'd go ahead and get married before I graduated. And I'd finish wherever it was, if he was outside the country. But then he got stationed at literally the furthest place he could continentally in the U.S.
And we didn't get married.
And we didn't get married, even though he was 3,000 miles away.
And it was painful on the wallet.
And it was painful on the wallet. But for me, I knew that I needed to fulfill what was important to me. And I made statements, bold statements, because once again, when you're in your early, young 20s, you say things real bold.
Because you're in your late 20s now.
Yes,
As of yesterday.
shut up. Like, I told Justin when we got an engagement ring, I was like, that silver better be good enough that if I live in Washington, I could pawn it and buy myself a first class ticket back home. And then I remember also thinking, like, if I have my degree and we're married and we become a statistical military spouse couple that divorces, I've got a way out. Like, I had my degree was my own
Almost
collateral.
the prenup.
Yeah, like I knew that I had something, and it was. I was like, if I'm going to follow you around for the next potential 20 years, you can hold up for 2 years. Like you can wait on me for a minute to do what I need to do and do what I want to do. And so one of the ways, I mean, for us, it was not a very emotional decision. Like, if it was based on emotion and just like love or lust or like, oh my gosh, I know you're the one. Justin could have proposed when I was 18, and I would have said yes.
Yeah.
Right after his mom passed away, which in that year of your college experience is when all of our friends got engaged, because that's the big thing at VMI. Mm-hmm. Your junior year to get engaged, so you can get married the summer after they graduate, so you can go wherever they go. But he knew me well enough to know what was important to me and to not pressure me in that way, which again was the reason I knew he was the right one. I was going back to how did I know that you were the one? How we were ready for marriage?
College Justin did not have enough money to buy a ring. It would have been like a gumball.
Yeah.
Gumballs.
Which there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. There's nothing but.
But it was definitely another reason.
Yeah.
To wait because
I definitely didn't want to have a loan out to buy
on that.
On that.
Yeah. No. Another thing, reason that I knew that Justin was the one, and this leads into the next question is, were we in the same plane space spiritually when we got married? Is that we were not. Justin, not until recently, like last 2 years recently, we're in the same ballpark.
Yeah. Denomination, ballpark, like anything.
Atmospheric level of any sort. In the same place spiritually. But Justin has never made fun of how woo-woo spiritual I've always been. And number two...
Well, because I grew up woo-woo spiritual.
Yeah, but I had very different ideals.
Yeah.
I think that's the reason why we worked, because the things that you kind of were like, I don't know about spiritually were things that I was like, no, that's not where I am spiritually. The things that your earlier church experiences had burned you about. Mm-hmm. I was like, no, that's not my Jesus kind of thing.
Yeah.
But one of the things is in high school, I got bullied for wearing a True Love Waits bracelet. And, like, when I say bullied, I mean, like, to the definition bullied about it. Like, people were just terrible. And Justin, like, it was never a conversation that we had to have and that we even brought on the table until 3 years in. And that was so unheard of. And so... whether it was about college and how he respected, like, my decision, like, this is how it was, or, sex or whatever, if I said, this is how I feel about it, Justin was like, okay, then that's how you feel about it.
Yeah.
But that's not, you said it like, yeah, duh,
Yeah.
like, that's
Well,
the
I mean,
obvious.
duh
But
to
that
me-
is not how
Duh to
people
me is
are.
obvious, and I know that's not how everybody is, but I'm just, I guess, honor and loyalty and respect are such big like parts of me.
Yeah.
That like that's just a
Because
duh
I can tell you
comment.
from experience that, like, in those short periods of time that we were not together, like, we broke up one time for 60 days, the other time for 45 days. And I went on 3 other dates. I dated one guy for 3 weeks and went on 2 separate dates with 2 other guys. All 3 of them made me feel not only vastly uncomfortable, but one put me in a very uncompromising situation. That was the first thing that I told you about when we first started talking again. Uncomfortable. Like, it was really bad.
Situation,
like,
yeah.
it's one of those things that I have, like, blacked out in my memory most of the time that I, and I've never shared about because it makes me so uncomfortable to think about. And I think that was for me when I was also like, if that's what the rest of the world is, guys are like, and these are guys that are like Bible verse in my bio type guys anyways, you know, like, they never missed a Sunday of church versus just, it was like, I don't, you know, like, that wasn't your biggest priority, like, church, as far as, like, being in the presence of God, church. Like, these were guys were like, your mom would have been proud for you to bring home, but sit in their cab in their pickup truck, not good places to be. Do you know what I mean?
You said you shouldn't be proud to bring me home to your mama?
Okay, first of all, we all know that my mother is way more, like, in love with you and has been than I ever have to begin with. And second,
Not in a weird way. Like, she's like a mom.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. And then, and second of all, I mean, in high school, were you really?
Yeah, you should. No
I mean,
mother would have been happy to see
Yes.
me walk down the
Versus
driveway.
these were guys like collared shirts, like, they were too, I mean, you've always been very respectful, yes ma'am, no ma'am, but, like, these were like, you know, they volunteer for the youth group and all this kinds of stuff, but they were not Justin outside of that. I can assure you. And one thing is, I always ask Justin very crazy questions, like, because my mind goes, I have a lot of questions. I just remember asking one of them, like, where do ponds come from if they're not irrigation ponds? Like, did they come from meteors? He laughed in my face, and he was like, that's so dumb, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, made me feel like a complete idiot for asking a question or, like, pondering a question. And you would...
Again, that's a good reason to marry a 5 because I know all those stupid question answers, and I'm happy
or
to
you're
give
happy
those knowledge.
or you're happy to do the research and report back. So those were big ways that I knew. She's just laughing because you're laughing.
No, I just squirted juice in her mouth.
Oh, gosh. That's one of the reasons that I really knew, because we have nothing in common on paper.
Nothing in common on paper.
Yeah. But what's important to us at our core, like loyalty, like you said, honor, knowledge, we get these same. We're the same. Okay, well, this is going.
Okay.
What does it mean to be same team, same dream? This are kind of like little phrase we say.
I think it's just, again, the loyalty and the supportiveness that we show each other. Not like marital loyalty, like, what is it? When you Fidelity.
Yeah.
It's more like the like every video on TikTok. Don't quote me on that. Just about every video on TikTok and just about every all the YouTube videos, because I went through and did them all at one time so far. I like them. I watch them. I have downloaded her podcast. I've listened to her podcast.
We're each other's biggest supporters.
Yeah, and I'm here doing this, so like I'm always supporting her. So,
and I think that people don't get to see you do it as much as because like when I show up for all your stuff, it's a little more in person versus so much of my work.
Yeah, like I'm running up and downstairs every night, running up and downstairs, getting lights, or anytime she does stuff like getting lights,
or
and
taking care of the
baby, or cooking dinner, whatever, doing dishes, cutting the grass, whatever, so she can do this side of the stuff. So
yeah,
it's mutually supportive teammates.
And we know that the work that we're doing, even though it's in different arenas, like our end goal is one legacy, and with the same principles. We're just doing them in different like we've used analogies like different courts or you know different games, and so.
And she does the same thing with me. Like every day my soldiers got home, when I was gone for a month, she was there every morning and handing out biscuits with the baby, handing out biscuits and coffee and drinks and everything else. She put on her birthday weekend, put on a great Halloween party for my. It's not a Halloween party. It was a fall festival. Fall festival outside. Keeping COVID guidance. It was outside.
Yes.
And for the most part, and so that's what we mean. Same team, same dream. We're all looking for the end goal.
And that means that a lot of times we're having to sacrifice what we would like to be doing in that moment. Mm-hmm. Like Justin would rather be vegging out and watching TV because he's got a busy week. He's leaving again for a few days for work. Than sitting here doing this. Not that you don't mind sitting here doing this, but as far as like what you're sacrificing, the little bit of me time you might would have to do this. And same thing, like the Friday night of my birthday weekend, I would much rather us be able to start the weekend early or spend 2 nights down in Nashville or have a girls' night.
Well, you definitely didn't want to wake up early with the baby to get there and feed soldiers that were like, yeah, thanks, bye. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were very appreciative.
They were. But we know that long term, the legacy that we want to have as leaders, as business people, the way that I want to do business, the way that I want to lead ministry, we know that we have to make those little personal sacrifices, that it's for the same goal long term. Mm-hmm. Because eventually, I don't think our careers will be so separate. That could be 20 years from now. But
yes, I'll be out of the Army and I'll just be doing whatever you like. I'll be supporting whatever you do.
Yeah, no, we said you'll be running all the logistical side of things, the things that I hate doing. Yeah. So, that's what it means to us, is being on the same page, even if we're not in the same space or place physically. Let's see. What does it look like to support each other's mental health? Like, what are some things that you do when I'm, like, feeling a depressive episode coming on, or I'm feeling super anxious?
Again, this has come with experience, so this is not my natural like instinct. I'm very like fatherly, and we've always joked that I'm the father of the friend group.
Justin's the dad of any
group. Yeah, the dad of any friend group. But we're playing past the baby. Mm-hmm. But just listening there, not trying to solve the problem, just listening to the problem.
Which is hard for you because you want to come in and fix the situation.
Yep. And then, and if it is real bad, just being there and getting whatever she needs, whether that's a cold compress for her face or just to lay in bed with her and hold her and rub her back, or take care of the baby now so she can lay there and take a minute to decompress and regroup. Yeah. So
well, like even the other night when I was super stressed, like Justin's learned to ask me, what can I do? Like, what can I take off your plate? Because when I'm super anxious or I get really wound up, one of my problems is that I will start to like self-preserve and like put myself on an island where I feel like I'm my lone warrior and I have to handle everything myself. And because I don't want, like, I feel like I'm on fire and I don't want to make you be on fire and stressed too, so I won't tell you about it. But you've learned some of the signs and symptoms of me, what I look like when I feel that way. And you'll say, okay, what can I do? Or you'll start connecting the dots and start doing things. Mm-hmm. Because as moms, a lot of it is a mental load. Like, even though I don't have to have the house clean right this second, or the laundry room or dishes or something done, just knows that if I'm super wound up, if he starts taking care of those little things, those are things on my like mental load list that they've also got to get done. Because when you're anxious and you're wound up, you can't crawl through that hole. I'm sorry. When you're wound up, you honestly goodness can't differentiate between what's important versus what's urgent. Mm-hmm. So, and for you, like supporting you when you're anxious or stressed, when we're in public, because a lot of Justin's has to do with like being in crowds, is I'll just notice he does little things with like he'll start counting his fingers to help bring himself back down or whatever, and and I'll initiate us leaving because Justin does once again knows that he's on fire, but he doesn't want to pass the fire to me and make me anxious or make me feel bad for wanting to leave. And I would be like, hey, why don't we go ahead and head out? Because I'll notice he's not feeling it.
I'll just kind of get quiet.
Yeah, and I can sense him like starting to self implode, and so I'm like, let's just cut out, and so we'll leave, or like today you're starting to feel a little anxious, and I was like, okay, well all we've had to eat is sugar and caffeine, you know, maybe it's time to drink some water or let's go eat some protein and like get something on our stomach, and so it's. Are you laughing at a spot?
I'm laughing at a spot, yeah.
It's just one of the things that you have to start paying attention to each other and noticing each other's patterns. Like, when people say marriages work, it's not the fighting back and forth. It's the learning each other so that, like, I can guess or
understand.
Or start to understand, like, he has a migraine. I know to ask, like, a few questions, like, have you done this today? If he says no, then these are the ways that I can help him make his migraine go away. Like, it's just learning and understanding each other's patterns, which for me makes me feel seen and understand, which feels understood, which fills up my love tank. And for you the same way, a lot of yours is quality time, and just you don't like to feel crazy or stupid or anything like that. So if I made you belittle you for being anxious or saying just get over it, like for him that could be very damaging to our relationship, and to him personally, just like for him to tell me it's not that big a deal, would be bad. So okay, these have been flowing pretty good. So we only got a couple more. What does our faith look like together, separate? The person that asked this, because I didn't write the whole question down, Kirsten, she's like, in practice, like quiet time versus like church, like do we pray together? Do we do devotions together? What does that look like? What does that look like?
We definitely do church together, usually whether we're together or separate. While I was down there at the border, we would not necessarily at the same time, always, especially when we're separated. But on Sundays we'll always watch Elevation Church.
So that we can talk about it.
So that we talk about it, yeah. We don't pray very much because we're very different in our, I guess, spirituality.
Our practices look very different. Also, because spiritual intimacy is a big thing for me, like intimacy with God, like in relationship. And so to me, praying together, it's very awkward. Like I don't mind praying for us, or like praying like we did because we both pray for food and we pray with Zadie, and I've even like prayed over him. Like we pray over each other a lot, but as far as like the popcorn style, like let's sit here and I'm gonna pray, then you pray.
Yeah.
That is. And
again, I think that goes back to our like not communicating very well verbally. Like that's one of the reasons I don't feel comfortable, not with you, like with anybody. And I guess that is spiritual intimacy, like prayer intimacy. Like I don't feel comfortable praying out loud because it's just a me and God thing.
Yeah, I feel like when I'm praying with somebody else in that way, I feel like I'm more worried about what are you thinking about, what am I praying about, than I am about like, to me, prayer, like it is so intimate between me and God. Our prayer times are very separate. But like I said, let me tell you, Justin knows, like, he will feel a hand on him in the middle of the night real quick. And I pray over him all the time. And, he'll send me a text, that he's been praying for me or had me on his mind. He was praying. And so...
Yeah, because I don't necessarily, like, stop and pray, but I'm constantly talking.
Hey, we talked about that this week.
Yeah.
Praying without ceasing. I don't know if you caught that video.
Yeah. But, like, in the car, like, sitting at my desk, anything. Like, I'm just constantly talking, not out loud, mostly in my head, and it's like, no, I wouldn't say it's like not having a conversation with God.
I feel like I'm touching base with God, or like touching in, like, hey, like, this is what's going on. And because we know each other's patterns and we've learned them, especially over so much time, I think we can sense when each other needs the extra prayer or that spiritual support. So that's when we tend to do it more intentionally, I would say. But we don't do like sit down and do devotion together.
Nope.
We've tried that in the past, but once again, the way Justin reads and studies is very different from how I read and study. And so we do actually better when we watch a sermon or a Bible study series, or even like the book that we're going through now, like read a chapter and then let's talk about it.
And we'll talk about what we took away from it ourselves, and
Right.
then most of the time I'm saying something, she's like, oh, I've never thought about it that way, and she's the same way. She says something to me, I was like, oh, I've literally never thought about it. Like I would never.
Because when it comes to faith, we're so left brain, right brain.
Yeah, well, in life we're so left brain and right brain.
Yeah. And so, you know, maybe for somebody who thinks that, oh my gosh, I want my husband to be so spiritual with, like, it should look a certain way. And I certainly had that expectation early on because I was like, oh my God, we're not going to be a good Christian couple if we don't, like, sit and meditate and read the Word over our coffee on Sunday mornings. And so, I mean, because we tried. But it was probably more damaging to our relationship than it was helpful. Because it created so much stress. Because I was like, that's not how you read your Bible.
Yeah, that's exactly. That was literally quotes that she said. Like, that's not how you read your Bible. And I'm like, oh, it's not right.
Once again, we were not in the same place spiritually, but how we got to the same place spiritually was we found, and this was one of the questions too, like, how do we find the same church? Lots of trial and error, and be like, hey, listen to this sermon, or hey, check out this pastor, or you know, whatever, because we do come from such different spiritual backgrounds that it was hard, because Justin had a lot of distrust with preachers and teachers, because they would say one thing and do another thing in their personal life. Or he was like, there were some things that you're like, if this is what you say is how God is and how God treats people, then how are you preaching that? You know, like, it was just not congruent. And so Justin literally fact-checked our preacher in Washington State, and we would spend the next hour after church of him, like, not tearing apart the sermon, but like almost like overanalyzing it to the point that it wasn't spiritual. Like, he was just like, it was just so off-putting for you in that season. Yeah, it was hard, and that hurt. That was hard for me because I couldn't get it. I couldn't understand.
Yeah, and I think that was a lot to do with me too, like personally, because it was just that season I wasn't.
You just weren't as open to it.
Yeah, open to faith. Period.
Yeah.
And that's something else you have to deal with. It's like all the times, and it's a lot better now, but all the times you're both not going to be on the same, I guess, again, to use the reference, same playing field with your faith. Sometimes, you know, I might be waning and she's, you know, charging hard, and vice versa. So you just got to understand your partner well enough to help them through that, I guess. Because there's been some times, you know, even now that I'm like not doing my devotional, or not praying like I should, and not watching church, and I'll be, you know, grumpy or whatever, and Kendall's like, have you watched church yet lately? I'm like, no. But, yeah, I can tell. So, like, understanding your partner well enough to be able to catch on to that and help them.
And I think it's also understanding the context of the verse, to be equally yoked, because a lot of times we take that as we have to be in the same place as each other spiritually. But I mentioned, you know, before, in like the not healthy relationships or dating experiences I'd had before, on paper we would have been equally yoked. You know, as far as we attend the same amount of church hours a week. We attend the same kind of church. you know, we know the same amount of the Bible. Like, that would make sense as being equally yoked. But I think a lot of what we've learned is equally yoked is a lot to do with like spiritual priority and how we reflect God to people. Because even in the seasons where, like, the one thing that I can tell when you're like not pursuing it as hard as you are in other seasons, is for you, like, you're more short-tempered, or like not even tempered, it's more like aggravated.
I get frustrated very easily.
Yes, and so like it's not anything major.
Somebody
or you
pulls
like
out in front of me, I'm very angry instantly.
Yes, so you're not like starting to backslide into treating people ugly.
Yeah.
And so I think equally yoked is better to be compared to like how are you prioritize treating other people and your view of God and the world and its role within it. Like, 'cause we've always been on those same, you know, similar pages. Zadie. She's got some blocks.
Zadie's blocking her block. In case you can't hear.
Yeah, that I'm sure they can hear. Zadie, can you bring us one? So,
No,
you know, don't just marry the guy or the girl that has the Bible verse tattoo. Like, how do they, and I've used the example, like, how do they treat the waiter? Yeah, but I'm saying don't just marry that guy because he has one.
Okay, yeah.
Or think about all the people back home who just, like, wear, or around here, they just wear Bible verse paraphernalia, or, like, they say things that they think are just what Christians should do, but they treat the waiting staff terribly.
Yeah.
Or they're not making good choices as a leader at work or within your family, like prioritizing things.
Yeah.
Like, they're not, as a husband or wife, they're not pursuing you.
Sorry. He's like falling off.
Bless him. You know, how people treat other people, to me, says way more about their view of God and religion and faith and spirituality than how many Bible verses they know.
Yeah. Treating the waiting staff analogy is great because, you know, if they're going to treat just a random stranger poorly, then behind closed doors, how are they really going to treat you?
Right, because once you have a ring on it, they can do whatever they think they can do whatever they want. And because you're a good religious person, you're not just going to run away and then all of a sudden you're left with what feels like a project and you're committed, and that creates storm. I mean, because how many times have we seen that with friends? You know, where they're like, well, I married him, you know, but like he just likes to go out or he just can't quit drinking, and, you know, as long as he's going to church and, you know, he's taking care of the kids, like, how am I supposed to do anything about it? Because you're supposed to both want to do something about it. And if you don't want to get yourself in a situation like that, you have to put the work in beforehand.
You're supposed to both want to better yourself. So just settling, as we've talked about before, is never good. Like, you want them to.
It'll show up somewhere down the line.
Hey, Sadie, baby.
I mentioned how we chose a church. There was a series that Elevation was doing back in 2017 that, because once again, y'all know I watch like an exorbitant amount of hours of sermons and stuff a week, and I got really on this one. I watched it 2 or 3 times. I was like, I know I'm going to annoy you by asking you to watch this after church, so we were attending there. I was like, you really need to watch it. And I knew it was good when he said, okay, we can go ahead and watch the second one. Like, we watched the second one right after it. But he was like, quiet, which is usually either a very good thing or a bad thing for Justin, because he's thinking, like, his wheels are turning. And then he came back later and he was like, yeah, I kind of like that dude. Like, which was, we had never agreed on a preacher before, ever.
Yep.
And this was 3 years ago. Like, September will be 3 years. Or was 3 years. Yeah, so it took time, it took patience, but we still always attended church together. Like, Justin was not attending church when we weren't agreeing. Like, we were still, and a lot of it we were still trying other churches, like up until 3 years ago when we were married. So for 2 years, it was 2 years of trial and error, seeking and finding, and figuring out what each other wanted and needed spiritually.
And it looks a lot different for us because we are a military family, so we can't.
Right.
And an officer, to just say it in a different way, an officer, because I move more than a soldier will, like an enlisted soldier will. I move just about right now it's been about every 4 years, but as I get promoted, it will be quicker and quicker movements.
It'll go from every 3-4 years to every 2-3 years.
Yeah.
At
so
most.
In that short amount of time, there's only so much community building you can do in a church. So you need to find a church where you feel comfortable at, like, instantly. And not necessarily where you're, to me, it's a lot to, not necessarily the people in there you feel comfortable with, but the pastor. Like she says, fact check the pastor. And so it's, it took us a long time, like she said.
And we as a couple were figuring out theologically where we are as adults, like what is important to us, like, and we know from being in this group that there's people of all different denominations, and different denominations believe different things.
Way different things, yep.
And we had to figure out, like, where do we fall, and what are things that, as we are preparing at that point to build a family, that we want to be a priority.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is that what it says, Sadie? So, it was hard. But once again, that was one of the things that we made the statement. We have to have that figured out. We have to feel like we have a home church before we can start a family.
Mm-hmm.
That was just like I had to get my degree before we got married. We had to be in the same spiritual realm.
And it's kind of funny because we had to have a letter of recommendation from our pastor.
Yes, and we did.
To adopt Zadie, and we did.
From Pastor Chad.
Yep, from Pastor Chad.
And we got one from Faith Beam, since she's been
our spiritual
mentor and counselor through it all too, which is separate. So like it's okay to have, and you should have probably several different Christian mentors speaking into your relationship and into your life, to help you through different seasons, because it has been hard. And Faith's an adoptive mama too, and they adopted transracially as well. So we're just so great. We can't say enough good. We could do a whole video about how great Faith is. We talked about how we got on the same page spiritually.
So how do we know each other was the one? How do we know we were ready for marriage?
Out loud. If you have any other questions, that I think we've covered them all here, but we'll do a Q&A here for just a second too.
Yeah.
How would we get on the same page if we were raised differently? That wasn't church related.
Okay.
So basically, you come from a house where your parents divorced when you were little, and my parents are still married. So how did we get on the same page? Because I've mentioned before how, like, when we first started dating, do you remember how you would hug?
Yeah.
You're like, it was like,
yeah.
And you would side hug, and we would bump heads.
Yeah, and how we still how it's still weird for me to like sit on the couch and snuggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Justin's mom and his stepdad had a great relationship, but they still didn't sit on the same couch. They would sit beside
Like he
each
had
other.
this like middle chair, and she sat on the couch next.
But they
to
didn't
him.
like snuggle on the
Yeah.
couch. And I'm a snuggler. So coming from a divorced home, what was the hardest thing for you going into marriage? Or like what was something you had to overcome or you feared?
I guess my biggest fear was ending up like my parents did.
Divorce is, we don't use that word ever. Like, we don't joke about divorce. We don't, like, divorce is a curse word.
Yeah.
Like,
So I mean, I guess that was the biggest thing. Getting on the same page. Again, like, it's such a cliche answer, and it's a cop out, but communication. Like, understanding why Kendall needed me to sit on the couch and hold her, or for her, like, why I needed to, be alone or kind of veg out.
Yeah, for me, what was hard is because of the time in your life that your parents divorced, and because you spent most of your time with your mom, there were a lot of things that I just assumed you knew to do as the husband, like expectation wise, that my dad would do, as far as like, I guess like being lovey-dovey or something, you know, that just didn't cross your mind.
Yeah.
Because I think combination of you didn't see it growing up, or like you never saw your parents or, you know, really your mom and Wayne either, like be lovey-dovey, like touchy-feely toward each other, like PDA, like.
Yeah, PDA was never big in. I mean, they would hug each other and kiss each other like in front of us, but like they weren't walking around holding hands. They weren't like, you know, like I said, sitting on the couch with each other, and that was very common in her house.
Well, a lot of times I feared that you were mad at me if you didn't want to sit beside me. Like literally, I thought he was upset with me, and that was something that I had to overcome. And just little things like having to articulate to you that I needed you to remind me that you still, I guess, loved me like you loved me when we were dating. Like leaving the cute little notes and stuff that now seems so normal, but like early on was not normal for us. It was things, I guess, that had to be picked up on. Okay. Wasn't then because you didn't know, and that was hard. Because I also didn't want to hurt your feelings or make you feel like you should have known I didn't.
Yeah.
So. What are you doing? I don't know what she thinks she's doing. I'm gonna see if I don't know if you saw a question pop up or anything.
I didn't, but I was not watching it either.
I wasn't either. I don't know if there's been a question. There's been so many popping in.
Yeah, if you got a question here, you can ask us Q&A style. I'm looking at questions. Oh, no, I'm not clicking anything. Sorry. Coming up on.
One of the things we did early on, and we still do when you're gone for long periods of times, or if we know that you're not going to be able to communicate, is write handwritten. Like we've got tons of handwritten letters to each other.
Oh yeah, we have.
And for people who do better in text writing, we've always done really well. Like nothing would fill my love tank more than getting like a 2-page letter from you.
Yeah.
And you did that through college, and when we were engaged, he would still send me handwritten stuff out. A handwritten note is still so much better than a text. So.
Yeah, got a stack of cards from her. That when I go on the field, probably she'll like sneak them in my bag or something.
Yeah, I always try to hide one or two.
You didn't miss them.
Yeah, I know. I literally thought of that when you left. That I just completely slipped my mind. Well, y'all must have any
you're
questions.
a little busy with that.
Yeah, just a little bit. Still figuring it all out. Are y'all are so quiet. I wonder if they're quiet because you're on. Or maybe we just answered all the questions and we just
did a great job.
We just solved everyone's marriage issues.
Yeah, right. No. We are definitely not counselors, and we'll preface this whole conversation with that. We're not counselors, and we're not perfect,
and we're still reading books and still learning. Because as we mentioned, our latest communication meltdown was less than 2 weeks ago.
And marriage is work. It is constant.
That was probably something
bettering yourself
that we had to have conversations about. Is that just because?
Well, just work in general for me, like personal work, is something I don't find necessary. I don't think is necessary because
you weren't told that it was necessary.
Yeah, and I think I'm logical, and that's it. Logic is the end all be all, and I've found out that logic is not the end all be all.
Logic will fail you.
And logic will never fail you. Logic
will fail you.
Mm-hmm. No.
Logic will fail you. Did it not fail you 2 weeks ago?
No.
Yes.
No. It will fail. Emotions will fail you. Logic will never fail you.
Logic will fail you.
See? Right there.
Logic literally will fail you.
No, because it's logical.
Facts won't fail you.
Logic won't fail you.
No. This is why Justin also is looking for a therapist. So.
Looking for a therapist.
But as far as putting in work, like, Justin had to understand that I'm not going anywhere just because I want us to work on something. Like, at the very beginning, anytime I brought up something we needed to fix, I think you got scared. Like, I was just going to leave because I was upset about something. And I'm like, no. Like, that's just because we've got something we need to work on or figure out doesn't mean I'm anywhere. The D word's not even in my vocabulary. Yeah. But because, like, your fight or flight was so high, like, turned on because of what you had seen growing up, that you couldn't imagine things being any other way. Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, that's truth, and like I didn't think like, and it's still very difficult for me. Like, I don't want to. It's not fun for me to read the books or do the work that we do, but I know it's important for our relationship to do it. Because I bribe myself because I am a reader, but I don't usually read self-help. So I will read a chapter in my book and then read a chapter in our self-help book or our relationship book, and that's how I make myself read it. That's what I was doing down there while I was gone for the last week. I was reading, a chapter in my book and then a chapter in our book, and it would be like, sometimes it would be like 30-minute chapter in my book and a 2-minute chapter in our book, and then it'd be like a 30-minute chapter in our book and like a 2-minute chapter in our.
You just have to figure out what works for you, and it's like anything else in life: business, dieting, exercising, whatever.
One size doesn't fit all.
Yeah, and you're gonna have to, if you're in it for the long haul and you want it to be a lifestyle thing and you want it to be something to break a cycle in your family, or if you want it to be something that's going to last beyond your relationship, things that we're trying to do work now so Zadie doesn't have to deal with some of the fears that we've had, in relationship, or some of the issues that we've had. We know how to talk to her about, and one day she gets to dating, in her 30s, how to handle it. Because I believe that if we do the work now, that's less work she has to do in unpacking and trauma and all later. So that's why it's important for us. It's why we wanted our faith and for us to foundationally be in the same place before we brought a baby into the picture. A lot of people want to be in the right place financially, which is important to have a baby, but I would argue the right place spiritually might be relationshiply, maybe way more important. And just because you're married doesn't mean you're ready for a baby.
Yeah, because I definitely didn't want to bring.
Even though logic would say that you are logical progression.
This one, I didn't want to bring this one into a world or a relationship when we weren't on the same. Me and Kendall weren't on the same page because, as traumatic as it's already going to be growing up adopted and, transracially adopted, I don't want to put any more on her plate.
Yeah. And I think you had seen growing up too how a child could be used as leverage, to break a tie in the conversation or, to try to win points. And we want to be on the same page before it ever gets to her. So, we're the same team, and so the way that we parenting, we don't want her to feel like she can go, unless it's about like getting ice cream for dinner, she can go to daddy and get her way. But as far as like important issues or priorities of how we raise her or what's important value system wise, we're solid on that together and then the same place.
Yep.
So, well, I guess somebody has any questions.
All right, last call for questions. I don't think there's been any. I haven't seen any. Last call for questions. We're here waiting. And I guess it can be about anything. It doesn't have to be about one of the topics we've picked.
Yeah. What time is it? I don't even have a clue.
I don't either because I think my phone is over there.
I have no idea.
I have no idea where my phone is, which is not good because I might have gotten.
Did you leave it upstairs on the Daddy Beth?
Maybe.
Okay. let's see. Well, hopefully we're going to be able to get all the Bible study stuff to you this week. Of course, either way is just intro week. For the new Bible study. And if you haven't received your Bible study by the time it's time to start, then I'm going to send everyone that pre-order Bible study also a copy of the digital download version, so that way you could have it and start enjoying it, participating in it, whatever you want to do beforehand. And I was going to put up a poll last week and I completely forgot, but several people had asked if we would consider moving Bible study back to Thursday, which we did to begin with, because other people would participate in other Wednesday night services at their church or choir practice, and that seems to always happen on Wednesday. So if we moved Bible study to Tuesday or Thursday.
Don't look at me, it doesn't.
So if you're watching, comment what you would rather. Would you rather have Bible study what day of the week?
I would say Tuesdays would probably be better, because Thursdays are when this unit does Hails and Farewells.
So that might dictate it for us.
Yeah, because like there's one on the 12th, which is Thursday. Because they don't like taking our weekends.
That makes sense.
Hail and Farewell is like a formal event where we welcome new officers and senior NCOs and say goodbye to our...
Do y'all see how much of my calendar and my life is not dictated by anything that I plan?
Do you see how much of my life is not dictated by anything I plan? The Army is...
The Army plans our... Uncle Sam plans our life.
Yep. My calendar has nothing personal on it. It's all Army.
That's why we planned our wedding in less than 100 days. So that we wouldn't have to worry. And we still worry.
Yep.
But we did have COVID, so we'll be thankful for that.
Yeah.
But thank y'all for watching. I don't know if this was helpful, if it was...
And it felt a little sporadic in places.
That's just me, probably.
That's just us, probably.
Yeah, and the fact there was a cat back
there. There's
there.
a cat back there.
There's
the baby running around. The 10-month going on
we've
toddler.
We've only been home a few hours of the whole weekend, which means you've not had time to like ground yourself back here.
And like,
so,
I'm thinking about tomorrow, and I got a long week, like she said.
Yes. Yeah. And we've been celebrating all weekend. We've ate Cinnabon twice this weekend, which is all I care about. What are you? Who are you hollering at? She was like giving orders to somebody. Well, Zadian, can you tell everybody? Down, I know. Can you tell everybody bye, friends?
Bye, friends.
We're kind of laughing. I have started. I have started posting to my YouTube channel. She's waving. Good job.
Good job, baby.
I'm posting a bunch of kind of random stuff.
Good job, baby.
Right now, because in order to get monetized and become like a creator on YouTube, which would be helpful with the way I can use the back end of YouTube for organizing Bible studies, and it'll let me go live in longer time blocks and stuff, I have to have
so many watch hours
and 1,000 subscribers. So that's why you're going to see a lot of random stuff up there. Like, I've done a review for my new velour tracksuit. It's up right now if you want to go see it. We've done our fall little festival family thing. I'm going to do an unboxing of my birthday present from Jay. I'm literally just trying to come up with stuff to post so we can get...
Any ideas, throw
if you have
them in
any
the
ideas, you can put them in here. Hopefully I'll be able to edit this to make it work to go on there, just to create some stuff. But I'm Kendall Mariah on there too. Subscribe. I'm learning YouTube. Justin's told me there's something about ringing a bell. He watches.
I watch a lot of YouTube.
So,
like, subscribe, hit that bell.
Justin's could be
like the video, subscribe to the channel, and then if you hit the little bell icon, it will notify you every single time that Kendall posts a new video.
Yes, do that. Okay, thanks for joining.
We're gonna go get this little one down.
Did you see her like? Say night night. Say night night. So we gotta do a little bit of hair first. Good job. That was such a good one. Oh, don't pinch Daisy like hair. That's not nice. Okay, I hope you had a great weekend, and let us know what day of the week you want to have Bible study.
Bye, friends.
Bye, friends.